On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the Japanese military bombed the American military base at Pearl Harbor. This is something that would change the lives of every American, especially those of Japanese descent during the wartime. The attack made every person with Japanese heritage, citizen or not, a suspect in the eyes of America. The Japanese were labeled as alternately dumb and sheep-like, or devious and darkly intelligent. However they were viewed, they were considered a threat to America. For this reason, in February of 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed an executive order to relocate all persons of Japanese descent on the West Coast to internment camps. Japanese Americans were forced to sell their businesses and leave their jobs and homes to be interned in camps in the Southwest. While they were interred, each person was given a long and complicated survey to test their loyalty to the United States. 2 questions in particular were looked at as deciding factors. These were questions 27 and 28. 27 asked internees if they were willing to join the military. Many answered no, for a variety of reasons. Many had family in the Japanese military and did not want to fight. And still more were outraged that the government that had taken away all of their freedoms was asking them to prove their loyalty by risking their lives. Furthermore, it was confusing. If they were considered suitable to join the military, didn't it mean they were considered American citizens? And if so, why were they treated like aliens? The second question asked them to forswear any allegiance that they had had to the Japanese emperor. Again, many answered no. There were those who would not answer yes out of protest, those who would not give up allegiance to Japan without the promise of American citizenship, and many who were simply confused, or even thought that question 28 was a trick to get them to admit that they had had loyalty to Japan in the first place. However, those that answered no to both questions were solidly in the minority. Most young Japanese American men that were able joined the segregated 442nd or 100th Battalions, often because this was seen as the most loyal or American option. There was a constant struggle from within the Japanese American community to become assimilated into American culture and society. Even Nisei, or second-generation Japanese, were looked at as foreign by many Americans. They hoped that by joining the military, they would promote the image of Nisei as simply Americans. Those that answered no to both questions, known as no-no boys, were generally looked down upon and were considered cowardly, weak, and a setback in proving their Americanness. However, these draft resistors often showed some of the most courage and resolve of all with their refusal to serve the government that was imprisoning them, facing huge challenges from discrimination, alienation, and even the stigma of a felony conviction. They did not refuse to fight because they were scared. Rather, they were trying to protect their own rights and equality as much as those who fought. Refusing to serve in the military was usually a solitary decision, such as at Minidoka internment camp, where 40 Nisei men refused the draft, all separate from each other and all without the support of their friends and family. In many different camps, the same thing was echoed, and in a few, such as at Heart Mountain, draft resistance became a movement, spurring 90 men to resist. All total, about 300 men became no-nos. Often, these men took action with the hopes that the federal courts would protect them, but their hopes came to nothing. Almost all Nisei draft resistors were sentenced from 2 to 3 years in prison, and branded with the stigma of a felony conviction. Only in one case did Judge Lewis E. Goodman acquit 26 draft resistors, stating that prosecuting them would be shocking to his conscience and a violation of due process. Unfortunately, the men he let off were ultimately robbed of their freedom once again shortly after their release when they were interned for a second time at Tule Lake. Even after the war, Nonos were still very much discriminated against, both within and outside the Japanese American community. They were ostracized by those who had fought and other young Japanese. They were seen as a hindrance and a symbol of the difficulty their community was having assimilating. However, there were some who supported the Nonos. First-generation Japanese Americans, or Issei, often supported Nonos for the same reasons they were hated by others. Parents often urged their children not to join the military, stressing the dangers of war, and they saw the Nonos as remaining loyal to the Japanese community, preserving their culture and identity as a Japanese person. In 1947, President Truman granted a Christmas Eve pardon to all Nisei draft resistors, relieving them of the stigma of their felony conviction, but never able to give them back the years they lost in jail, or able to repair the relationship with their community.